Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Slamhub Wrestling. Myself, Suprit, and this is your AEW Dynamite review for July 7th, 2021. So, this was their Road Rager edition. So, Ridwan, they are finally back on the road. They are finally out of Daily's place. At least they were in Miami, so it kind of feels different, but they had their old setback, and yeah, everything is back to normal, man. What you think about the show?
Yeah. Well, you asked me about the show. The show itself was pretty great now, and it really feels good to see them back on the road with their old set, like the original set when they started Dynamite, and everything does feel normal, as you said. And at the same time, like they like you mentioned that they're still in Florida this week, which was Miami, and doing shows in Miami has been kind of a big deal in wrestling. Now, next week that they're going in Texas, and Texas is like kind of the home of pro wrestling in a way. So, like exciting times ahead. Exciting times ahead, anyway. You could say.
But did you see the setup? How they did the setup? Like the camera, hard camera was facing to the set actually, not to the sides.
You mean like the crowds?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Usually, this was more PWG style, if you notice, because even if you've seen the old PWG shows, they have like the the hard cameras more or less just includes the crowd, and it's opposite to the entranceway. So this was something new, and it looked a bit fresh as well, something something different in a way. So now, and previously, if you notice, like in the previous, like at the start of Dynamite, when the show actually started, they were doing the same hard cam as what WWE did, with the entrances to the left or right, until COVID hit, and they were doing it facing the entranceway. So, and then WWE also copied after that. You remember the early PC shows?
Did they use a ramp?
Yeah, they did use a ramp. So I mean, the hard cam was facing the entrance ramp and stage. And then once they went to Thunderdome, it became normal. But except the crowd, it was the virtual crowd, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, like, and AEW is kind of known to experiment with their sets sometimes. Even if you see their shows in Daily's place, with crowd or without crowd, and it reminds me of the time when they ran their first show of the year in Daily's place last year, and it was the same setup as Double or Nothing.
Yeah, like you don't have that type of
Like the
layout or space in Daily space. I'm talking about compared to other normal arenas.
Yes, I was talking about Double or Nothing this year, like to be more specific, because there was only one entrance way at the corner, and that's where it was attached. The ramp was attached to the ring, kind of like WCW in their late uh, 2000s, around that time.
Because you had to fill in those extra seats that there are available in that upper deck.
Yes. And what was the crowd capacity, if you could tell me?
For Daily's place.
No, for yesterday's show in Miami.
I think it's a small venue, about
Yeah,
5,000, I guess.
yeah, that's quite fair. Daily's place is around like about just under 2,000 or around
No, it's
1.5.
also 5,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Because yes, because when they move, like when they did the full 100% show, 100% crowd show, just before Double or Nothing this year. Yeah, yeah, you're correct. It's around 5,000, but it doesn't look like it, right? In a way, because the crowd, no matter how much it was, like even during the pandemic shows, the crowd was quite loud, so you couldn't really see how many people were there.
But let's talk about this week's Dynamite, man. So pretty good show, for getting back on the road.
Yes, like they wanted to, obviously they wanted to put out a great show just so that the crowds are back, and they wanted to deliver great show and then build up on that on their latest shows. And like getting back to our previous point, like the show is in Texas, and like I had mentioned, Texas is kind of a wrestling home, because I mean South was like the holy shrine of pro wrestling back in the early days. So obviously they want to build up on that, and we have a great night of action coming up next week, which we'll talk about in detail later on.
But on this week's Dynamite, we had Cody Rhodes versus QT Marshall. So this was a South Beach strap match. We had a six-man tag involving the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle. Speaking about both these factions, so Jericho and MJF, they had a little face-off. We had the in-ring debut of Andrade El Idolo. So he was facing Matt Sydal. Orange Cassidy and Kris Statlander, so they were facing Blade and the Bunny, and in the main event it was the Young Bucks, and they were facing Eddie Kingston and Pentagon for the AEW Tag Team Championship. So this was a street fight and so much more. But before that, if you are new to Slamhub Wrestling, then make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Check out our previous content. It will be available in the description below. All links provided. But let's start from the top, man. So they kicked off with Cody Rhodes versus QT Marshall. So this was a strap match, a South Beach strap match. So first off, no build to this match, and I think even AEW knew that nobody really cares about this feud. But the match being the opener here at least gave it some legitimacy. So what do you think about the match and this whole mini feud that is going on between these two men?
Uh, you described it for me, to be honest. You had mentioned that no one really cares about this feud, and I'm one of those people. And like, to put it bluntly, like this feud has been going on for like 3 months now, or maybe more, because it started off with QT's heel turn at the previous pay-per-view before Double or Nothing. Revolution was that, yeah. So QT Marshall had turned heel at that time because he thought that he wasn't getting enough respect from the Nightmare family, and they were trying to usurp him from having some relevance. He was actually true on that part, and it's like heels that are actually right are like the good heels. And even then, like I was enjoying most of QT's work, even if it was for a fact that no one really cares about him, unfortunately. But he was doing his best with what he was given, and it was good to see him, like shining on his own a little with having wins over Cody previously. And like QT is actually a pretty good promo, if you notice.
He's good. I said that. That's why I call him as a good hand in AEW.
Yes, and he knows that that's a ceiling. Unfortunately, he's not going to get any championships per se. But regardless,
He is the Jericho of the lower card or undercard.
like the Walmart Jericho, if you want to say.
Yes.
All right. So this feud, and QT did his best. It's just that Cody, he never really took him seriously, and that was that really killed most of what momentum QT had. So we get to this match just to it's a to end this feud, basically. So they gave him a jobber entrance for QT Marshall, because like the show's intro hits and the pyros go out, and the first thing we see expectedly is a Cody Rhodes entrance over the top, the ha thing, and then he's coming out and there's like the adrenaline thing hitting. What do you actually, okay, just give me your honest thoughts about Cody Rhodes as as a character, or whatever he's on TV.
I would say that Cody Rhodes is not overrated, but there is small glimpse and pieces that he tries to be the face of AEW, which is he's not the face of AEW. There are certain other names that I could put in that category. But yeah, man, Like he does his best to, he knows that if he, puts into that, main event position, he's going to, people are going to shit on him. So that's why, he has, set up things like taking himself out of that world title picture. And then once he was done with the TNT stuff, he decided not to, be featured in big important storylines. But at least he gave a try with this QT Marshall thing, and that's the way Cody Rhodes operates.
I mean, yeah, you've described him quite well, and I would say most of it as well. But I actually like Cody Rhodes, to be honest with you. He's someone, who should, I mean, if he was like a proper wrestler, if he wasn't in an executive role, he could have been doing more, and he should have been, because like he has the other facets of pro wrestling nailed down to the core. Besides, of course, like in the ring, as a proper wrestler, he is someone who fits a certain mold, which is like, and we keep saying that AEW is about variance. He is like the old school 80s NWA type wrestler, which works perfectly for him. But despite all of that, like, I can't stand his flashy entrances, and like, him being the center of attention. That's the only gripe that I have with him. So other than that, I would say, like, he's genuinely great, except the tiny bit of showboating that that really gets me. And that's just one of my pet peeves, and I don't want to rag on the guy. But besides that, like, if you gave someone like you, I mean, QT Marshall, who had like something going, and then you gave him a jobber entrance, that really killed any chances you could have seen of him winning, because in the build up to this match, he was actually portrayed quite strong. And there was like some chance you would have seen, if QT had won this, they would have made something out of QT, and they would have built something from there. But regardless, like, getting into this match, like, overall it was actually quite a fun match, because like it was your classic 80s NWA style. Strap matches were like a huge thing back in the day, in like the territorial days, and it was a good throwback to that time. And the way they got there, with QT healing it up, and then QT bleeding because you want to see a heel's ass getting kicked. And from there, like, Cody was like a fiery babyface who was trying to put out all the stops to have QT lose. And even then, like, I really liked the finishing sequence of this match, where QT just spits on Cody, and he gives him like multiple crossroads, and then like a defiant babyface, he just taps all the turnbuckles and gets the win. So all in all, it was quite a solid match, and a pretty decent opener to start off the show. But then, like, I mean, sadly, no one quite cares about Cody Rhodes, with the position that he's in. So that's a bummer. What did you think about this match?
The match was, it was just there, man. At least the crowd, tried to, at least they reacted to some bits here. QT was kind of getting a decent amount of feed from the crowd. Cody Rhodes, I think, is still over with the fan base. I think that's going to slowly die as the weeks come about. But like I said, man, the match was fine. And by the way, it was a strap match, so it was just basic thing. So let's try to get into the highlights. So both men were struggling, getting all the four corners. But there was also an interference from QT Marshall's stablemate from the factory, Aaron Solo. He actually got involved, and this led to Dustin Rhodes coming out and chasing both Aaron Solo, and there was another guy, I think it was Nick Comoroto.
Nick
So
Comoroto.
yes, so those guys are out. So back to the action. So like you said, there was a point where QT Marshall got busted open. I think he was sent into the post. So as we get to the final parts of the match, so Cody Rhodes, hit back to back, at least three crossroads, and he finally was able to get all the four corners And by the way, there mid match there was a blackout. We'll get to that when we talk about it. But there was a blackout, and yeah, man, that was the entire match. Nothing important coming about it other than this feud is over. So if you want to, feature the factory members, then you can, Rampage is the only destination, I believe.
Maybe, or like Dynamite is still going to be their flagship show once Rampage hits. So you could feature most of the undercard talent on Rampage to give them more build and take it from there. So I think someone like Team Taz, members of Team Taz would make a good presence on Rampage, I believe.
Yeah, like I said, Rampage should be, just like what WWE did with SmackDown back in the day. But those the extra guys, the new guys that you want to feature on Dynamite, but they don't get TV time. So you can take those type of guys and give them extra TV time on Rampage.
Yes, but even then, like back in the day, they SmackDown did feature most of the top talents. Like they used to have Rock and Austin do their bits on Raw and more extensively on SmackDown. So that was also still a thing. But we'll see. We'll get to it eventually once Rampage comes around. But we'll see what happens. But then, even then, like another, it's going to be a 2 hour show, right?
Oh, no, 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 no! It was going to be a single 1 hour.
Oh, then it makes sense. So it should be fine because to be honest, the even as a wrestling fan, it has become kind of a job watching everything.
Uh, let's let's quickly transition to the next thing. So you talked about Team Taz. So they showed a segment which was actually, I think, filmed before Dynamite, where we had, Ricky Starks. He came out to the ring cutting a promo. So he had three guys that he claimed to be security, his personal security. So he was talking some shit regarding Brian Cage, I guess. So this prompted the Team Taz members, Taz, Hook, and Powerhouse Hobbs to come out. So this all led to I think Ricky Starks was still talking shit to Brian Cage and also brought up Brian Cage's wife. This prompted Cage to come out and take out the security members, and that was basically it. So this was just to hype up their match. I think it's next week, right, for the FTW Championship.
Yes, it is next week at Fighter Fest Night 1.
So there you go. Nothing much, but yeah. So shall we get to the Ethan Page Darby Allin sit down interview with? I think it was with Jim Ross, right?
Yes. So I just want to get my thoughts on the previous promo that you mentioned about Ricky Starks. It was like you mentioned, it was for Dark Elevation, the segment. So we'll probably see it this Monday on YouTube. And besides that, it was such a basic promo for a talent like Ricky Starks, and that really kill. I mean, no, I don't want to say kills because that's more of an extreme word, but it damages any hype that they had, heading into their match, which is a damn shame because I mean, both can really go, but it all leaves up to the match how they deliver it. So I'm confident this match is going to do great with the inbuilt story that they have of Friction and Team Taz. But I'm surprised, like even Taz is getting annoyed with Ricky Starks now, so that's there.
Does
And
does that mean if
yeah,
that Ricky Starks is gets out of Team Taz and breaks out as a singles? That could be,
I mean,
that could be a good transition in that storyline.
yes, it would be an interesting spin on things because everyone's expecting Brian Cage to leave Team Taz and become a babyface star. But I wouldn't be against this either because it will transition Team Taz into a face stable, ironically, and I wouldn't be against that at all. I feel even then, like they would make something work out of it because obviously, like someone like Hook, they want to give him more talent, and Hook is one of the talents. Despite we haven't seen him wrestle, and there were reports that he will, because he's close to making his debut. So we could see someone like him feature regularly on Rampage. So that will be interesting.
Let's wait and see, man. But so we were talking about Ethan Page and Darby Allin. So they had a sit-down interview. So it was just to hype up their coffin match for next week. I think it is for Firefest, right? So
Night one, yes.
yeah. So JR was saying that he feels really uncomfortable knowing both men want to end each other's career. So Darby Allin said that Page is jealous of him. Allin said that it took him just a year to be something in wrestling, while Page took about 12 years. So Page agrees on this point and adds that Page is the one who made Allin successful, etc., etc. This whole segment was really good. I said how that last week that Page is really good on the mic, is a really great heel, and I'm really hyped for this coffin match, man. This story between these two men has been really great.
Yes, you've said most of the stuff that I wanted to. So Ethan Page is genuinely great as a character, and he's got everything tooled down as a proper heel. He can generate great heat and is always good on the mic as well. So this segment that they had with this was a sit down interview, and it also ties in with the clause that Page had stated to sign a contract where they wouldn't touch each other before their match at Fighter Fest Night One. And it was a great promo from both of these guys. Darby also said, it took him a year to be something in wrestling, and Page was it was Page's 12th year in wrestling. And Darby also mentioned that he doesn't blame Ethan Page for that, because he had a family and he wanted to be a big fish in a small pond, which was the Canadian wrestling circuit. So there are a lot of interesting tie-ins to their feud in the independent circuit, especially in Evolve. And I think this was around 2016, 2017, or yeah, it was 16, or yeah, it was, I think, 2017 itself, because that's when Darby Allin actually shown as a proper indie wrestler. And to think of it, it's actually quite surprising to know for a fact that Darby was in somewhere as WWE, as an NXT proxy, if you think about it. And
Darby has really broke out in from that indie wrestler type of mold, and he's become a superstar now.
yes, his entire shtick. I mean, not his shtick, because that will be too cruel of me to say, but his look is very indie-rific, and from there to become a star that he has right now is like a huge leap, and which is great to see, because someone like Darby, and people really compare him with Jeff Hardy, and it's a very good comparison, I would say. And like from the apex of Jeff Hardy's babyface run in around 2008 to 2009. So from there, comparing Darby, who's obviously tipped for bigger things, and AEW marks him as one of the future main eventers. So this is a huge accomplishment for him, getting where he is. And this match, for what it's worth, I think it's more for Darby to take time off. Like we mentioned, he is going to film Jackass. So it also, leaves open a lot of doors to revisit this feud once Darby returns, if he's losing, that is. So, and the best part is, it can go either ways regardless, because if a stipulation like a coffin match is right in Darby's alley, and he can be the de facto expert of this match and take Ethan down. So a lot of interesting possibilities, and future ramifications from where each character goes on, and builds up from there. So I'm quite excited for this match. What about you?
Yeah, it's like this lot of elements regarding why we are hyped. First off, the coffin match, it automatically sells because it's a kind of a stipulation that we rarely see even in WWE. It's been years since we've seen that type of match. But other than that, the feud has been really great. They AEW has really done a great job talking about the history and uh, say presenting in a way like they both these guys have actually a legit heat or something like that. So looking forward to it.
Me too, man. Just really excited for this match, and you know, even if like for Ethan Page, I'm actually quite excited for his future in the company because like this past year was, in a way, it was his breakout year because he was shining on his own, and he was part of the tag team called the North in Impact with Josh Alexander, and they had like a historic tag reign, like one of the great tag reigns in modern history. And then he's shown as a single star, and like he has this whole karate man shtick going on at the end of his Impact run. And from there, like his debut, it took a bit of a hit, and then like they paired him with Scorpio Sky. It was to help both of these guys, but Ethan is clearly outshining him. And let's just say, like, there is a lot of potential in Ethan Page as a single star, and hopefully I kind of hope that he wins the TNT championship sometime this year, and let's take it from there.
Let's see, man. But we had Tony Schiavone, so he was in the ring. He was introducing Kenny Omega and Don Callis. So Mr. Callis is back for this week. So Omega, is just all is continuing with that, mustache look. So Callis took the mic and he started putting Kenny Omega this week. Like there was no Don Callis last week, but same kind of promo where he's putting over Omega, talking about the guys, top guys he has beaten so far, and the championships he has won all around the promotions. So a "you got fired" chant broke out. So Miami watches Impact Wrestling confirmed. So Callis said that there is no one left for Kenny Omega. So then the crowd started chanting, "We want Hangman" and cowboy shit. And both Callis and Omega are trying their best to ignore Hangman Adam Page. So here comes the Dark Order. So Evil Uno was on the mic. He wants to talk to Omega. So Uno brings up that they are completely ignoring the number one ranked wrestler in AEW. That's Hangman Adam Page. So Omega then casually asks Uno, "What's the capital of Thailand?" So Uno says, "We want to do trivia now, Mr. Omega." So Omega out of nowhere kicks Evil right in the balls and says, "It's Bangkok, bitch." I'm
It's a
crying at
fourth
this
grade
point.
joke. It's a fourth grade joke, or let's just put it like sixth to seventh, because it was very childish. But then it works with Kenny's character, so it was okay, I think.
It got me, brother.
But
It got me.
yeah,
But from that, we go to a brawl broke out. As we know, Gallows and Anderson started coming out, and this led to Hangman Adam Page finally showing up. So he was taking out both Gallows and Anderson, and then we had the big face off between him and Omega. He also tried to hit a buckshot lariat at one point, but Omega was able to escape, and that was it. So basically, the same segment from last week, but the thing is, they further it a little bit. Like we finally had Omega and Page coming face to face, and all I want to say is just keep us invested, man. Just keep us invested.
yes. To think of it, that this segment was the same as last week, but done a little bit better. Just filling in the blanks with Don Callis coming back, and him trying to put Kenny Omega over, and then the Dark Order faction comes trying to say like what was same thing as, like, he's trying to ignore the number one ranked wrestler in AEW, and from there, we had the Bangkok joke, which was like it was cringe, but like it perfectly fits with Kenny Omega's character, so it was fine. And then there's like the only thing, like, I don't want to say the only thing, but like the difference was, of course, there was a beatdown, and Gallows and Anderson, and even if you notice, and Gallows is trying too hard to fit in with the Young Bucks with the danglies in his ear. Like, I
Gallows
don't
and
know. Like,
Gallows and Anderson are notorious for their adult humor.
yes, and like they are admittedly one of the biggest carnies in pro wrestling, in modern day pro wrestling. So they have like Matt Hardy's gimmick, but in shoot.
They
So
are the modern day, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash for a lot of
y-
reasons.
yeah, for a lot of reasons indeed. And coming back to the segment, so like of course Gallows, Anderson and Gallows with the danglies come out, and they try to restore some order for Omega as the champion. But Hangman's inclusion, so they've acknowledged that it's Hangman, who is the challenger for Kenny, like potential challenger for Kenny because of because of his win-loss record and of course their history. And from there, like Hangman successfully taking down both Anderson and Gallows with the danglies on his own, that made him look like a fucking badass, which I am totally in for. And it stamps him as like, not stamps him would be a bit too extreme, I would say, like it really solidifies him as the biggest babyface in AEW right now. And if you had taken to Twitter in the past week, there was a thread about the entire Hangman Page story arc, which was like a huge hit, which was acknowledged by Hangman, but in character. He was like, when you're wrestling and some asshole tries to articulate your entire career. I mean, it was very in character for Hangman to say that, because obviously, like, he's this anxious guy who doesn't think too highly of himself. So now, like, we have a face off between Hangman and Kenny. And they did also do a great callback of, you remember the post match segment at Revolution between H- Page and Omega versus the Bucks, when Hangman tries to hit Kenny with the buckshot lariat. It teases it, but he ends up not doing that. And even then, like once he was trying to hit Kenny with it this time, but he just decides not to, and they faces off with Kenny, and then Anderson and Gallows come and interfere, and Kenny tails off. So they have like taken small steps to progress the story, and they have like around 2 months now, like just less than 2 months to get to this match. And I'm sure they'll do a great job of building the hype for it, and the story is obviously there. So I'm excited for this. Like as the weeks go by, there are a lot of ways they can progress with it. And one thing I can confirm my trust in AEW is they won't overcomplicate it by bringing in outside factors you know um just to damage any hype that they would have. But regardless, like Hangman as a babyface, like sign me the fuck up. I'm all here for that.
And they kind
So
of
yeah.
mentioned about Fight for the Fallen, like Kenny Omega and is going to defend his championship on that show.
Yes, but it won't. I believe that just to get like a big fuck you to Dark Order, I believe it will be against any of those guys, even if their win-loss record doesn't really match up for them having a title contention. But we had seen the same thing with Miro, defending his AEW championship against someone like Dante Martin just before Double or Nothing versus Lance Archer. So we could see something like that happening. Even, and of course, like he's the champ, he can do whatever the fuck he wants. And again, it also fits in with his character because he's like the god of pro wrestling. He can do no wrong. And as someone with Kenny Omega, like currently he's a, I believe he's more um I don't want to say relevant. I feel he's more at the top now than he was as the IWGP champion, or would you say otherwise?
I think Omega from 2017 to until 18 was your number one guy.
He was, but once he became the world champion, he was dealing with injuries then, and he's also dealing with injuries now. So that kind of dampened any, any more build or interest you could have had in him. But now that with reports coming in, they are saying that he is doing fine now. Like, I think it was Melzer who said that he was doing a lot better than before, because he was dealing with nagging injuries heading into his match at Double or Nothing against Park and Orange Cassidy. So from there to hear that he has recovered is, it's good to know. And we also, like, I hope he's doing a lot better. And even then, like, I'm excited to see him, like, if this is the way that they want to take the title off him, I would totally like it, because giving Hangman the title at his first attempt, or maybe, it's kind of a double-edged sword, unfortunately, if they either make Hangman lose now to build in more interest, but sadly it could kill his momentum. But let's see what happens. Like, it's like we have all the time in the world until All Out, and it's going to be interesting couple of months to get to this match.
But moving forward, we had a little promo from Sean Spears. So he was talking about how he cost, Sammy Guevara the match against MJF, and was going on and on. But here comes Sammy Guevara, blasts a chair on him and says, bitch, I got you, something like that. So they are going to, continue this thing. I think this time it's Guevara and Spears. So there you go.
I believe it's going to be at Fighter Fest Night 2. It has to be, because I mean, gives Sammy something to do, and they want to generate more interest into these weekly specials. So that's a match I'm kind of excited for, because I personally am. I don't want to say I'm a fan, but I have a soft corner for Sean Spears, because he gets a lot of shit. Like, admittedly, because he's not everything that got him over in NXT as Ty Dillinger. So he's like a more watered down version of that in a way. But I still enjoy his work, and I'm interested to see this match. And obviously, this would be a great way to get Sammy over more so as a babyface. So I'm all in for that.
At least he is in a big faction in AEW.
Yes, that's for true. Like, he's somewhat relevant, which is good to see.
But sticking to the faction deal, so the next story of the Pinnacle versus Inner Circle, so they had a six-man. So we had in one side FTR and Wardlow, so they were facing Proud and Powerful and Jake Hager. So Conan was there, to accompany the Inner Circle team. The match was kind of really good, and we also, saw bits and pieces of what we could expect if we get a big match between, Proud and Powerful and FTR. Like the opening sequence of the match was really good, and they also had, a little face off between the monsters, Wardlow and Hager. So they were, going at it. So as we get to the final parts of this match, so there was some kind of distraction. I think it was Tully Blanchard. So Jake Hager was the legal man from his team. So this allowed, the heels. So FTR hit the big rig finisher on Jake Hager. Wardlow here took the pin, and that was it. So match was, I said, it was fun for what it was, and I think the right outcome was to, get the, in Pinnacle, that their team, the victory here, because they desperately need it. And I loved the finish of, Jake Hager taking the pin, because it actually doesn't hurt him, but you at least had to keep, the Proud and Powerful strong before, you do other things. So what you think about this match?
This match was fun, like you mentioned, and like it got all of these guys something to do. Especially, like, it furthers the feud between Hager and Wardlow, and also between FTR and Proud and Powerful. So obviously, like you mentioned, it's a way to get to the eventual blow off between Proud and Powerful versus FTR. I don't know. I was gonna call them revival because I'm still used to that, unfortunately. But regardless, like it was a great start, and it was a showcase for all of these six guys because, like, if you know, like both Santana and Ortiz are great pro wrestlers, and especially I believe Santana is more well-rounded because he's more charismatic of the two. And they started off with the Three Amigos spot. Shout out to Eddie Guerrero, which was good to see. And I liked how he ended that spot with a German suplex. And I am an unapologetic sucker for that because German suplex is kind of one of my favorite moves in wrestling. So it was, like I mentioned, it was a showcase for six guys. And having seen Jake Hager as part of Inner Circle since the inception of Dynamite and the stable, that you tend to forget sometimes how great of a wrestler he is because he's also into mixed martial arts and he has that going. But you'd forget that he was a former world champion in WWE, and as someone with an accomplished amateur wrestler, he's genuinely great in the ring. And like, I am kind of enjoying his feud with Wardlow, but even then, like, there's something missing from this feud. Like, even if now they've had like three instances where one has gotten the better of the two, it's still like I feel that there is a certain spark missing, like in like a big horse fight. And it, like even mentioned, it further progresses the story between FTR and Proud and Powerful, which is a money match to begin with. And I believe it's going to be on it's I feel it's going to be on either Fight for the Fallen or at Fighter Fest 2, Fighter Fest Night 2.
I was talking about this same topic with Abby uh, on where could this match end up. So he was pitching that they could give it at All Out.
I would love for it to be at All Out, but then again, like, I don't want this feud to lose its steam. And as like an on a broader spectrum, like the feud between Inner Circle and Pinnacle has been going on since the night after Revolution, and it has lost its steam in a lot of ways, the entire story. But then, like, taking a step back and, like, having to see both FTR and Proud and Powerful, I believe, like, as the hype has been great, so why not just do it at any of these special shows that they do. But it will be a bit of a step down. But then again, like, like, maybe if Rampage was still at I mean, if Rampage had already started, they would have given it more time and build to it, if they were building it to All Out. But I would be fine either way, if they decide to put this match at All Out. But I don't really see it going that far personally.
I think it is going to be before All Out, right? Before, because if you do that, then you have a set of challengers for the Young Bucks at the pay-per-view itself.
Yes, and I I want to see FTR win the tag titles again because I feel that they didn't get to do much with the titles, as the story was all about Kenny, Hangman, and the Young Bucks. So FTR were just like as a side players, even as champions, which was quite unfortunate. So I believe they should win the titles again and do something more with it. And it will also signify the talent, the act that FTR is, because they are accomplished tag team wrestlers and probably one of the modern day greats in that ilk.
That's it, man. I think this is another underrated storyline that's going on in AEW.
Totally, totally. And the level of talent that is in this feud is like, I like both of these tag teams, and I am a huge fan of tag team wrestling, and this is my jam, literally.
But let's talk about another favorite, that is Dr. Britt Baker, TMD. So she had a little promo segment Just I was just minding my own business. No, she was because she was just hyping up this match with Nyla Rose. I'm just sitting back, just have I just had this promo in the background. And then all of a sudden she started talking about Vicky Guerrero, and then she compares it with some blood money and shit. And then she randomly throws this line. Wonder if AEW Dynamite happens from Saudi Arabia. Damn.
It was a bit excessive, but it was savage because, and she did have a point in her promo because her deal with Vicky Guerrero, like, sorry, not her, Tony Khan, she was directly addressing Tony Khan and she was telling him that she makes the most money, obvious for a heel to say. And then she was telling that she is the biggest draw in the company, again, obvious for a heel to say. And from there she was saying that her deal with Vicky shit, why did I feminine Tony Khan? The Tony's deal with Vicky Guerrero is got Andrade, who's one of the most coveted free agents in pro wrestling, to AEW. And that is like a domino effect where Rebel got hurt last week. She exploded her knee and she's going to be out of action for a long time. And she took it all the way, like she addressed it as blood money because it was at the cost of Rebel being injured. So, and then it was like blood money, and she wouldn't be surprised if the next AW Dynamite episode ends up in Saudi Arabia. I loved Tony Schiavone's expression at that. He was just like, you remember that gif that Tony Schiavone has where he just says, "What the fuck?"
It
It
was
was
it was
from,
yeah, and it also happened in the initial Britt Baker heel turn.
yeah, it was a first heel promo, and it was at Bash at the Beach. I think that was what it was
It was
called.
Jericho
It was at
Cruise.
the cruise. Yeah, it was at the Jericho Cruise, but the show was called Bash at the Beach, I guess.
Yes,
But
something like that.
a- anyway, so like she does end the promo, which leaves the entire promo in a bad taste because like she calls Dallas the Big D, and obviously there are like with someone like Nyla Rose in the story, obviously it has like a very terrible backlash from that. And I don't think that was like a well timed thing for Britt to say. But then she ends it up well as like they'll call it the Big DMD. So it was a fine promo until that very specific line, which I do want to create controversy from. But and obviously, like the bigger controversy out of this was, of course, the Saudi Arabia line, which was a bit excessive, but it kind of makes sense with what she was saying in character. But regardless, I am someone who could care less about the whole, oh, WWE is taking shots at AEW, AEW is taking shots at WWE. I'm someone who's beyond that point, and it got a good laugh out of me, so I was fine with this. What about you? Like, were you okay with this shot taken shoots harder thing? Were you fine with that?
First off, man, you want to talk about that D comment? She was talking about Dallas, man. Dallas is
She
the
was
big
talking.
Dallas, Texas, big. Come on, get the
I know.
reference, man.
I did get the reference, but I believe that it wasn't very well timed. Just it was out of left field. Let's call it spade to spade.
But about the promo, I told you, man, last week, a heel, a bad bitch. Britt Baker is the best Britt Baker.
100%. And that her heel turn is what made her a star. And like she was treading water as a babyface, with all due respect. she was like the she was actually the very first signing of AW as a talent, if you could count Hangman Page out of the picture, because obviously he was with Elite. But and they obviously had clear plans for her. They wanted to make her the face of the division, and she is the face of the division, but on a heel spectrum. So it's interesting, and if that has got her going, it has made her a bigger deal. Then why not? And this heel bitch Britt Baker, kind of, like you mentioned, because Britt is one of my favorites, and I didn't want to address her as that, but like it broke my heart kind of. But even then, like it works for her, then it works for me.
But still, man, I won't say that this storyline with Nyla Rose and Britt Baker is the greatest thing in the world. There are lot of explanation. They could have done, you could say a good story out of in this. In the I'm talking about the storyline, but there the lot of things missing here, and the fans are really getting a hard time, getting invested in it.
Yes, like the story is also a bit ill-timed because both of them are heels, which makes Nyla the de facto face, unfortunately. And regardless of that, like maybe if this match delivers, then good. But l- getting to this match and getting done with it is what I'm looking forward to in a way.
But let's wait and see. Let's get to Chris Jericho and MJF. They had a little face off. So the thing is that Jericho wants a match with MJF, but MJF he wants some stipulations being thrown around here. So before we get to this face off, some idiot fan jumps in, and I think Jericho even took a rat at him. And on the other hand, MJF tried to stay in character, which is typical MJF thing to do. But so the like I said, the thing is that MJ want to throw some stipulation. So he brings up some history of Chris Jericho and the inner circle, and talks about the story he had with Jon Moxley, where heading to that match, Jericho was actually putting Moxley against all the inner circle members before he got to Jericho. So MJF wants to replicate the same thing here. So he said that the stipulation is that Jericho would be going to a series of matches, and MJF will be hand picking all the opponents here. And if he loses one of those matches, then his match with MJF is done. And they also brought up, we predicted what this stipulation could be. Maybe Jericho puts his career on the line, his at least his AEW career on the line. They kind of casually throwed it around. I think it was Jericho himself. So what do you think about this whole thing that they have set up for a potential Jericho and MJF match, and this series of matches we could be getting?
So obviously, I had mentioned for Kenny and Hangman, like they have 2 months for All Out, and this is definite. This is a definite All Out match because they even specified it with the 4 matches that Jericho has to go through, and he has to win that. Keep in mind that's the important crux of the situation. And starting from this segment, like when someone like some idiot fan comes out and Jericho takes liberties with him, I mean, fair play to Jericho because I believe that guy was a Democratic Party supporter, the whoever was coming in to attack him. Regardless, okay, jokes apart, but it was good for MJF to put Jericho over. He was putting Jericho over in his heelish ways, which is great to see because the heel, he has to put the babyface over, and the babyface has to put heel over. Basic fundamental of pro wrestling. And obviously, like the less we say about MJF as a promo, the better, because he's a star waiting to happen, like a superstar waiting to happen. Let's just call it more, just brand it more properly. And there was this one part where Jericho intended to, having
He said
what
that
is it?
he could do anything to have a match with MJF, and that would even be bang MJF's wife. As I wife, I'm saying mom. He took
And
a
then
step
I like,
forward.
yeah, and then and it's like the crowd was like, the crowd knew that Jericho was trying to say something out after that, and then he's like, I would have sex with your mom, and then and then he says again, and then MJF gets riled up. And then I liked how the crowd played up to that part of the segment where they were chanting, he's your daddy, he's your daddy. So then, and they did the great callback to his feud with Mox, and he's like, "Karma's a bitch, so I'm gonna put you against 4 opponents of my choosing, and you have to win them back to back to back to back." And the fifth match is will be the eventual match with MJF, and everyone's looking for the MJF rub, kind of out of context. But anyway, like I'm excited for this feud. I'm excited for this
Story.
eventual match. Yeah, story and eventual match at All Out, because it has like a lot of like they have a history by themselves, and they're going to obviously build up to that. And they kind of teased a little that with Jericho, he's like, if I can't beat any of these guys, I don't think I deserve to be in AEW. So they did play up to that. Jericho is at the tail end of his wrestling run, so he would probably, within a few years' time, he would go out on a high, no matter what it is. If he has to put someone over, or maybe go on his own terms. Anyway, like the possibility, endless possibilities out there. But even then, like like this has renewed my interest in the story between MJF and Jericho. And like, even as the entire Pinnacle versus Inner Circle feud was, it was shallowing down in terms of interest, but this segment was all it needed. It was, let's just call it, like, it was a shot in the arm that this feud so badly needed. And yeah, I'm excited for this now. Like, I mentioned that this has renewed my interest in the story, and I'm looking forward to these matches and the eventual MJF Rub match.
I hope that this series of matches is not against the Pinnacle members.
It's not, he said that it's going to be of his choosing. Maybe, like, if they want to pick someone from the Pinnacle, it's going to be Wardlow for sure.
So you would
They
risk
can't.
Wardlow to take a pin here.
You could maybe, like, in the end, probably the last match, and then MJF interferes because Jericho is on a hot streak of beating these guys, and then someone like Wardlow beating Wardlow as, like, it's just hypothetical situation here. Like, if Wardlow is the fourth guy, and if Jericho almost beats him, then Jericho gets his match with MJF, and that will incite MJF a lot more to hold these things, and then he would interfere and cause a DQ, and that also would protect Wardlow in a way. So maybe that's like a real possibility it could happen, but it's still hypothetical. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's anyone from the Hardy family, like someone like Butcher and the Blade, kind of like maybe in that echelon of talents. But who could you see being these, like, one of these four guys facing Jericho?
Maybe a bunch of surprises. Maybe other members except the Pinnacle. Some of the random guys on a AEW roster.
Maybe, but if he's trying to stack the odds against Jericho, there has to be some historical significance to it. I mean, the crux of the situation, like Jericho giving Moxley in his feud as a heel, and now it has come back to him. So that's a historical significance of his own. Now that they were trying to readdress it, so maybe they might get something out of it too.
Yeah, you could expect some random guys or a bunch of surprises.
Yeah, and it's going to be exciting. Like it was for Cody Rhodes' open challenge. You didn't know who to expect. So something like that. Like you mentioned, surprises. So if it surprises, then obviously, like they would get in talent, and probably even if it's for a one-off deal or signing them permanently. Exciting times ahead, you could say.
Let's see, man. They are trying to make this thing intriguing. So let's give it some time until we get to certain conclusions. But let's talk about Christian Cage and Matt Hardy. So I think their match is set for one of the nights of Fighter Fest. I think it's night one. So they had a little promo package to hype it up. Christian Cage is saying to Matt Hardy, he talks about the history and also told Matt Hardy to get to his level, in terms of wrestling, etc., etc. So this feud it's been there. You have the history and stuff. So only thing is to have a good enough match.
Yes, and you had mentioned this last week that they're definitely going to do it at any of these specials, which I'm glad. And let's see, like Matt Hardy, he's at the point of his career where he has the character to make it up for his wrestling. And Christian Cage is like an opposite of that in a way, but he's like an all-time great, and he's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. And they did mention that this feud is 23 years in the making, which is basically my existence. So I feel a little old. I feel very old now that I see this feud, like given the way they're hyping it. And like the promo by Christian was amazing, like he always is. And he used to say like I was at the side throughout the entire, like, important moments. I was at the side of the winning team. Where were you, Matt? And then he ends it in a brilliant way where he says, you better this is my journey, you either step out of the way or get on my level. I think that was like a very badass line. And this for me personally, I feel it's a foregone conclusion that Christian's going to win it, because they are building something up with him. Like, he has his one more match story, but in AEW, and they're doing a great job at it, because you don't know how much gas he has left in the tank, and they're just building up more to that. And even if Hangman wasn't in the picture, or perhaps you did mention that Kenny has a match at Fight for the Fallen, so maybe we could see Christian being that person he would defend his title against, because he has the win-loss record nailed down. Like, he has won all his matches, so you could see Christian facing Kenny Omega for the championship. And they did tease it a little when after Kenny's match with Jungle Boy. So perhaps you could see that being revisited. So interesting times for Christian Cage, and let's see what happens from here on out. But I feel this is Christian's win, and he has to win this feud or
And
match.
there is also the element of Jungle Boy, getting involved somehow. We talked about a potential heel turn of Christian Cage, which could lead to a match with Jungle Boy. So who knows?
That would be possible, but if that's the case, then I feel that if Christian loses, then they could take it from there. But my heart isn't ready to see a Christian heel turn at this point of his career. But then, like, stranger things have happened, and I would be interested regardless, because, like I mentioned, Christian's one of the all-time greats and my personal favorites. So whatever he does is going to be great as a fan of his. So I'd be there. I'd be there with vested interest to see what happens.
And speaking about Jungle Boy, so because of him getting to that 50 win mark, he was given something, a
He was given a small trophy as someone with being the first person to reach 50 wins in AEW. So he had the photographers, taking his pictures at the entrance stage. Kind of, I mean, it was what it was. Like, I don't have much to say about that, but yeah, I mean, kudos to Jungle Boy for reaching that mark. And they do see a lot of future in him, so they just build up from there, and just putting him in important feuds, and then build his stature up.
let's get to the good stuff, man. Good stuff. I'm talking about Arn Anderson. He was casually in the ring with Shivani. So Shivani was in the ring. So he talked about Anderson's managing Cody Rhodes, and Cody Rhodes getting the win early on. He also mentioned Brock Anderson, Arn Anderson's sons, and he talks about his debut. And so Arnold Anderson was on the mic. He was happy that the crowds are back. He was happy to be in Miami, and he had something to say, which we really don't know what the actual reason he was there for. But before he could say something, the lights go out again. So commentators saying that the power went out or something like that, and the lights come back. On one corner, we see Aleister Black. The crowd explodes. Aleister Black was there. He had, he was still selling that eye injury, quote unquote eye injury thing, and it's whole swollen up from one side, which looks bad ass. So Aleister Black, hits the black mass on Anderson. Anderson is down. So here comes Cody Rhodes. So he wants to help up Mr. Arn Anderson, but he also eats a black mass. So crowd is going insane at this point, and there you go. And I think the commentators. So at one point it was Excalibur. He mentioned that that's Tommy End. No wait, that's not Tommy End. So he mentions the new name Malakai Black. So there you go. Malakai Black is all elite. This was an holy shit moment, my friend.
Holy shit, indeed.
Like,
Like this,
the fact is, we'll get to the details and the stories. Why this was a holy shit moment, I tell you, because a few days ago, Zelina Vega, returned to WWE, and then I mentioned you like if Zelina Vega is back in WWE, then I won't be surprised, if Aleister Black also comes back. And then just a few days ago, he drops this video, that he's going to be set free, something like that. And 2 days later, he shows up on Dynamite. Like, who expected that, man?
this was like a holy shit moment in a lot of ways. Like it defines the word holy shit. So I'll get to more of that like as we talk about this, but this was like the biggest surprise and the best possible thing you could do with the crowds coming back. Like you wanted to drop a bombshell, this is your bombshell. This is like your biggest moment now that the crowd is back, and you want to, give them something grand, something extraordinary, and this was it. And it couldn't have been a better debut for Tommy End or Malakai Black, because he's kind of getting the rub from Arn Anderson, who is one of the all-time greats in pro wrestling, and then being automatically into a feud with Cody Rhodes, who is of course like one of the bigger names on AEW. He's a household name by himself, and with the star credibility that Aleister has, Aleister or Tommy or Malakai, you want to call him. I'll get to more of that. Like Tommy, I'll just call him Tommy and for now. So the star, like the credibility that he has had in WWE is Aleister Black. So you want to definitely build up on that and make him a bigger star in AEW. And kudos to that part that you mentioned where he was selling his eye injury. He has become all swollen, and that his eyeballs were like so tiny. It gives him a very, very, very sinister look, which fits in with his, the satanic monster that he is in character, of course. And from there, like he just beats An and Cody with a black mass. And commentary did ruin this moment for me a little. Like if I could just take myself out of it, I would be glad. And Excalibur, like kudos to Excalibur on this. Like he had mentioned that's Tommy, and that's a wrestler I have wrestled 15 years ago in
Germany.
Germany. Yes, and from there they take it to JR opens his mouth. He's like, "Oh, he's gonna be Tommy End or Malakai Black or whatever he's gonna be called." I was like, that took me out of it. Like, okay, and then Excalibur corrects. Oh my God, now I know who he is. It's Malakai Black. Like that was a big downer for me. But then again, like I don't want to hold it against them because that would be a very petty thing to do. But even then, but yeah, now getting back to his name, Malakai Black. So it's from what I know, like from what I've read, obviously, like I'm not very well versed with things. It has a biblical significance to it. So they are just like the depths of evil that he has in him and in the story. So that's a reference to that. But yeah, so Malakai Black is all elite, and his debut couldn't have been any better except for the commentary. But you mentioned, and you had also mentioned that Zelina is back in WWE, and you wouldn't be surprised if Alistair would go back. But this was like the best possible scenario in of all parties involved, and I am so glad it happened, and I'm so excited to see where it goes.
Man, this guy was just a month ago on SmackDown debuting, and he shows up on AEW Dynamite now. Like, what happened?
Let me tell you what happened though. So basically, here we go. So the reports are, I think it was the PW Insider guy. I keep forgetting his name. Mike Johnson. Is that? correct. Yes, Mike Johnson. So he mentioned that it was a clerical error on WWE's part that while they were releasing Aleister Black, so instead of a 90-day no compete clause, it got a one third of it. So he had a 30-day no compete clause, which freed him up from the shackles, and now he's debuted on AEW Dynamite, and this is like a big money signing for AEW. Has to be, like, in terms of talent and how the talent and potential, so to speak. And like, giving someone like one of your bigger, like, potential big stars, and effing up with his paperwork and, like, setting him free is like, isn't it the most WWE thing ever?
At least I'm happy that Vince and Bruce at least had those video
Bruce.
packages. Yeah, they don't steal my stick, man. I'm what I was saying. Yes, at least I'm happy they set up this guy with promo packages, hyped him up, gave him a new character, and now you can do the same thing, continue in AEW. Tony Khan, just hit the jackpot here.
100%. Like, this couldn't have been in like, all scenarios involved. This couldn't have been any better for Tony Khan himself. Like, signing a major star like Malakai Black. Now let's just call him Malakai Black from now on. And I just want to ask you, what is your dream match for Malakai Black?
There's a lot, man. The one that comes from the top of my head is obviously Black versus Omega, Black versus Darby Allin, Black versus Pac. Lot of dream matches, man.
Yeah, Black versus Pac. Wow, that rhymes. Black versus Pac is like another significance dating back to their match at the UK tournament. So that is a small, good history to revisit. And Black and Darby, like you mentioned, both have similar characters, so that will be fun. But the one match I am personally looking forward to, dream match, of course, is Malakai Black versus Hangman Page. Both the wrestlers have like similar skill set, like both are acrobatic, heavyweight, and it's going to be an interesting clash of styles, and I'd be excited for that to happen.
From the set of releases, the WWE releases this year, this guy was on the top three of potential guy that will break out elsewhere. So Tony Khan has got one of those top three now. He couldn't get Samoa Joe for obvious reasons. Daniel Bryan, we don't know where he is. At least got Aleister Black, now Malakai Black.
Yes, and it's only a matter of time before Buddy Murphy shows up on AEW, and he has to, because like this is a platform like AEW is going to make him a bigger star, and with all due respect to other promotions, but and they did even mention that, like, kind of Buddy Murphy on Twitter, he was addressing Aleister Black's debut, and then like, there is a pop culture reference to that which I'm not familiar with, where it's like the devil made me do it. There is something like that which I need to do my research on. Apologies for that. And like, he addresses Buddy Murphy, Malakai Black, that is. He addresses Buddy Murphy with quote tweeting him and just saying Matthew, which is also a tie into that. And of course, Matthew happens to be Buddy Murphy's real name. And there is a new name that Buddy Murphy is going to come with on the Indies slash wherever, whichever promotion he goes to. And Malakai did reveal it on his Twitch stream. I forgot the name that they were coming up with. Like, it's something, and it's Adams, which is Adams is his real, no, Murph. I don't remember. I'll come, like, I'll probably write that down in the comments once I do my research more thoroughly, which I am sorry for. But here you go, man. Like, Malakai Black is all elite, and man, injected into my veins. I'm so excited for this.
And this is a big signing, like I said before. Like, he was even trending in the number 5 on top 10 list on YouTube. So that's a big thing, man.
Yes, as of this morning or last night, you want to call it, he was number 2 overall on YouTube, which is exciting and it's fucking amazing.
WWE fucked up here, big time.
Big time, big time. And another, like, to quote Scott Hall from his NWO days, one more for the good guys. Damn, it feels good to be elite.
But from one debut, let's talk about the other debut. So it was Andrade El Idolo. So he was facing Matt Sydal. So
Matt
actually,
something.
yeah,
Matt
go on.
something. No, Matt something.
Yeah, Matt something like he said in the promos. So Andrade actually came out with, obviously Vicky Guerrero, and there was an assistant. And by the way, where I heard it somewhere that this guy is actually the head booker of AAA.
Really? The Roldan, it's Triple A is run by the Roldan family.
So it
And
was one of those
yeah,
guys.
yes, I didn't know that. And kudos to that person for coming all the way to AEW. And it also adds a bit of, if you think about it, it also adds a bit of prestige to Andrade's big money draw character, because he was like a big deal in Mexico and Japan before coming to WWE.
So by the way, Andrade, he had a great look, with that whole suit and mask thing, which is very Los Ingobernables. But I think there is also a lot of, you could say, there is some influence in that mask and get up other than that Los Ingobernables factor.
I mean, not particularly, but like mask is like a tradition in lucha libre, but this mask wasn't that. But that is kind of builds up to his like this free agent rich dickhead that Andrade is in character, of course. So it could possibly be a factor to that, but then again, like I could very well be wrong in this case.
But the match was, you could say, it was good. But Andrade, didn't went out of the way and have a killer type of match. But he had a fine match. And by the way, he was wrestling in trousers, basic trousers.
Yes. And like this match was totally a showcase for Andrade, because like they want to showcase this new star that you have, and obviously he's going to go over someone like Matt Sydal, who is more or less an enhancement talent at this point, which I don't mean to degrade him. But yeah, it was that they wanted to show what Andrade is as a wrestler and as a character. And many people, the hardcores especially, are familiar with his work in Japan and Mexico. He was one of the biggest draws over there before coming to WWE. And there was this line that Excalibur said that he is a free agent. Now, I'm not sure what is the context of that entire situation. Maybe he's a free agent for like in terms of clientele, but he has Vicky Guerrero with him, or he's a free agent in terms of signed talent, but he's all elite. Like even AEW put out that all elite graphic for him on social media. So I'm not sure what was he exactly referring to, but there you go. That's like a weird nitpick that I had from this. And he did the classics, the three amigos spot from Eddie Guerrero with Eddie Guerrero. He was teasing a frog splash as well before he was interrupted by Matt Sydal. And he has like a good surprising twist to his finisher. So he used to do the hammerlock DDT in WWE and NXT. Now he does a hammerlock flatliner, and it has the same name of El Idolo. And he also teased a new submission move while he was post-match beatdown to Matt Sydal after he won, obviously. So yeah, I mean, you couldn't have build him up any stronger. And there you go, like you have a new star in your hands. And this is also, I don't want to say like WWE fucked up with him. Obviously they tried their best to make him a star, but yeah, I mean, I'm damn excited to see what more he can do in AEW. and they could just put him into like a couple feuds before giving him any title or whatsoever. But
He is,
even then,
he is
yeah,
challenging for the Triple H championship in a couple of weeks or months.
yes, it's at their Triple Mania show in Mexico, and like I believe it's at the end of August. Like Triple Mania usually happens at that time, and like it kind of, I don't want to say it ties in, but maybe this is the best way possible you could put him over as the biggest star in Mexico by having him win and defeat Kenny Omega. And this also reduces Kenny's workload a little with all the traveling schedules, and it kind of ties in with those injury reports as well, now that we know he's doing fine. So a lot of interesting tie-ins in this case.
And but the only thing to take away from this match is Andrade is being presented as a top star, legit star. He looks great, and I think he's going to be kind of toning down his wrestling style.
Yeah, I mean, it works. It kind of works with his heel stick, but because like he's probably a bigger star, and he, if you pay him more money, he's going to do more in character, of course. And maybe we could see like more of him, like as a proper, superstar wrestler. You could see more of that on pay-per-views. So I wouldn't be against that in a way, because it suits his character really well.
Let's see, man, where this goes with Andrade. I'm still looking forward to what the surprise could be. And now we know that surprise is not going to be Zelina Vega.
Yes, and as sad as it is for me to say, like, even if it wasn't the original plan, and if it was made him a star in WWE/NXT, good riddance, you could say.
My money is still on Lij, man.
Yeah, let's see what happens with that. Like Forbidden Door, but I wish they could sign. Now if they weren't contracted to Ring of Honor, and if AEW was going to work with Ring of Honor, I wish they could sign Roosh and Dragon Lee to be in his corner.
That could be, potential thing for Ring of Honor to get involved in this whole Forbidden Door. But let's see.
It's right behind me. Anything can
Ah,
happen.
nice one, nice one. But let's stick to the Forbidden Door, man. So we got a IWGP United States Championship match. So Jon Moxley is back next week. He's facing Karl Anderson for set title. So I think Anderson had a little promo where he talked about, the whole stick with Moxley going on with is the feud they had with involving the elite, etc., etc. And he also brings up his singles record, which comes from New Japan. When he was back in the day a big star, also with both in a tag team and as a single star. So we got this match next week, right?
Yes, it is happening next week at Fighter Fest Night 1.
So there you go, man. So I think Mr. Carl Anderson will be wearing his wrestling boots next week. I believe so.
And Gallows is going to be there with the danglies. So that's weird. But this was like a good retrospect of Carl Anderson as a star in New Japan, because obviously, like, you know, the hardcore fans know he was an amazing star, and he was one of the finalists in one of the G1s earlier. I think it was either 2013 or 2014. Yeah, I
2012.
believe it was 20. Was it 2012?
I believe so.
Yeah, yeah,
Okada.
it was. No, he lost to Tanahashi in the finals of G1.
One of those matches, I believe. I don't remember.
Yeah, yeah, I believe it was Tanahashi, and it was 2013, because I remember it was right just before Bullet Club started. No, yeah, Bullet Club was in 2013, so yeah, this could be 2012. You're right about that. And yeah, I mean, it was a good retrospect, because he was a legend in Japan. Like, he was a star over there, and like, we all know what like, based off his legend over there in Japan, he is a really good singles wrestler. And if you notice, like, from there, like, he was a bit more muscular, and now that he's a lot leaner, and this, like, even in his run in WWE, after the weight loss, he was doing really great as a wrestler, but unfortunately, he wasn't given much chances with it. So this would be a great showcase for Karl Anderson by himself as a star that he was in Japan, and the potential, single star that he could be despite being in a tag team with Gallows, with the Danglies. Good one, good, unintentional joke there. But yeah, I mean, this is also the return of Jon Moxley, and Moxley is my favorite wrestler, and obviously, as a fan, I'm very excited to see him come back. And this was like a great callback to, they're like, we are going to do the most favorite thing that we do, beat up Jon Moxley. So this was like a callback to their beat up John Cena days with AJ Styles. So that was also fun. And yeah, I mean, next week is going to be fun with this match. And like Fighter Fest night one, it's already become kind of a stacked card. And just sign me up for this match. And I'm interested to see what this match happens and how it goes.
Let's see. But we had Orange Cassidy and Chris Statlander versus Blade and Bunny. So this is a story going on for a couple of weeks now. So we had a mixed tag here. So we would see the team of Cassidy and Statlander getting the win here. So they also had, Chris Statlander also go face to face with Blade at one point. So she hit the area 451 as said by Mr. Excalibur. So, like I said, the baby faces Cassidy and Statlander win here, and nothing much.
Yeah, I like the name though, 451, because like obviously I won't get into more details with that. And I, for one, I'm really glad to hear OC's theme, Orange Cassidy's theme, in front of like a raucous crowd in Miami. And I liked how they started this match with the signature Orange Cassidy spot with his hand in his pocket. And from there, like, this was more like building up the feud between Ali and or the bunny. Should I call her Ali or should I call her Bunny?
Call her the bunny,
Uh,
call her the alley. It's your choice, man.
okay. Okay. So I'll just refer to her as Ali in this. And I mean, she is easily the best part about the Butcher and the Blade. And I believe she deserves more. And she should be like a more focused, like, she should be more involved in the women's division for AEW. And this match was more about the feud between Ali and Statlander. And also this was a showcase for Statlander. She got over in a huge way. I mean, she was put over in a huge way, let's just say, because she was standing up to someone like Blade. And then, like, the finish where Blade hits OC with the brass knuckles, and like, Chris steals a tag from an unconscious OC, and then she steps up to Blade, and then, which automatically tags an Ali because the females could only fight the females. And she hits Ali with the Big Bang Theory, which is also a great name for a finisher, and pins her and wins. So Statlander has gone over huge, and it's only a matter of time, maybe after the Nyla Rose feud, that she challenges for the AEW Women's Championship.
No, let's see how they build her up because she's another, big challenger. They could do something with her and Britt Baker.
Yes, and with the way that it's going, it's like she is the biggest baby face in the women's division at this point. Or am I forgetting someone?
You at this point, she is a big star. Like they kind of toned down the other woman now. Like even Hikaru Shida is being, cooled off.
Yes, and she's wrestling on Dark now. Like, if you notice, like, the results in the lower third that they put out for Dark and Dark Elevation, she's been wrestling more over there. Like, she's debuted a new look if you go by her social media. And let's see, maybe they could start a redemption storyline with her, getting back her women's championship. Let's see what happens. And speaking of the women's division, I just want to point out before we head to the next topic, or maybe if you have something more to say, There is so AEW puts out these weekly podcasts on their YouTube channel with Scorpio Sky, and there's someone else who is a part of it. I don't know who that is. And for this week, it's the topic of this week's episode was called The Hot Mess, and it had Chelsea Green's picture on it. And I think, I mean, by virtue, she has to be a part of the episode. So Chelsea Green on an AEW YouTube show or like something related to AEW, it's only a matter of time she could be all elite as well.
Potential signee, maybe.
Maybe, or could be like a tie-in with Impact now that we have Slammiversary coming up, and she did. Maybe she's working, she's not. I don't know, but like she's spoken highly of Impact. I mean, she's been doing that in an unhealthy amount, and yeah, you could see her being signee or in Impact, or you could see her a signee in AEW. So a lot of possibilities with that as well.
She could even work both promotions as well at the same time.
Yeah, with the Forbidden Door,
Yeah, but at least, I hope she doesn't compare this run with her Impact run like she compared her WWE run with her Impact run.
which was heavily stupid, I would say. But
Let's
yeah,
see. That's a good hand, you could say, Chelsea Green, because she is kind of a big name out there in the industry. But yeah, it could give the roster, the AEW women's division or roster, some legitimacy.
100%.
But moving forward, so we had a small impromptu promo segment where we had Shivani interviewing. There was actually Amanda Nunes and some other UFC champion. It was the BMF champion, if I'm not wrong. Do you know the
Yes,
names?
Jorge. Yes. So Dan Lambert was in the crowd. He is one of the leaders of American Top Team, which is one of the most famous and the most successful gyms slash teams in mixed martial arts, and two of its biggest champions. So Amanda Nunes is one of the biggest mainstream fighters slash celebrities in the mixed martial arts world. And you also had the BMF champion Jorge Masvidal. So BMF is kind of their it's like FTW championship in AEW. It's unsanctioned, let's just say. So all of them were in the crowd, and they were featured like twice before before we got to this promo segment. And so Tony Schiavone basically tries to interview them as like, you have some mainstream presence on the show. And then Dan Lambert, like if you've seen Impact during its darkest days, like around, let's say, 2017, Dan Lambert was actually managing Bobby Lashley in TNA, and Bobby Lashley was also one of the members of the gym. He still is
Ah,
actually.
really?
Yeah. So
Oh,
he was part of the American Top Team, which is the name of the gym slash team. So Dan Lambert was cutting a promo about how pro wrestling has gone down over the years. He was actually right about that. Like pro wrestling has lost its significance from the late 90s.
basically,
Uh,
basically, it was something like he was one of he was not representing American Top Team. He was actually representing the cult of Cornet. Like they sent this guy, to talk about their displeasure about modern wrestling, something like that.
yes, you could attribute to that in a way, but nice one there. And he cuts a promo. He just drops a history lesson again, cult of Cornet style, like how there were talents back then like Bruno Sammartino and Buddy Rogers. I'm not sure if he
You
referred to
mentioned
any of
all
those
the
guys.
old school guys.
Yes, then he takes it to guys like Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, and I think he did mention Arn Anderson. I'm not quite sure. And then he takes it to the he refers to championship wrestling in Florida, which was like a big territory back then. And Florida, of course, these guys were doing their show in Miami.
Yeah, he
So
would
it was
he
like a
would rather watch that compared to watching just AEW.
yes. So then he cuts a promo, he denounces the fans, and he gets the fans to chant AEW, which is again a good heel thing to do. And then he gets interrupted by Lance Archer, who just comes out, gives him a blackout, and leaves. So I mean, it was what it was. Like it was, there was some mainstream presence on the show with guys like Masvidal and Amanda Nunes, and having Dan Lambert eat shit. And he's someone who's been part of pro wrestling a little, so having him eat shit is a kind of cathartic if you're representing either American Top Team or Jim Cornette, whichever way you want to put it. But then, like, I mean, despite that, it was a bit of, it was, I don't want to say bit, but it was more or less a nothing segment if you think about it. It was just there on the show.
Yeah, even the Lance Archer coming out really didn't felt that important.
Yes, and I kind of feel sorry for Lance Archer in a way, because he's taken enough losses that now you don't know what his character is, and you don't know how what's he's going to do after this. Because sometimes he's a heel, sometimes he's a babyface.
Like his stock has plummeted since January of 2019 when he left New Japan.
Yeah, 2020 actually.
Sorry,
He wrestled.
2020, not 2019.
Yes, 2020 when he wrestled Moxley at Wrestle Kingdom for the US title. And then he debuted in AEW in a huge way while he was part of the tournament with, you know, he was facing, like, for the inaugural TNT champion. He was booked like a monster then. And then Cody, he lost to Cody Rhodes. And then even then he was booked strong. He got to face Moxley at one of the special shows in September, I believe.
But
And from there, yeah.
his stock slowly, went down, 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 and started to die once that Cody loss
Everybody
happened.
dies. Yes, and as he says, everybody dies. So did his career. I mean, not his
So
career, but
yeah, I think they still want to give him another chance. I believe they are still featuring him and trying to rebuild him. Yeah, that's the best way to put.
yeah, that is indeed the best way to put. And maybe, like, not sure what the story arc is going to be like, but I have all the faith in the world with AW to, give him something meaningful to do later on, even if at this point it feels like there's nothing that could save him at this point in particular.
And I believe if this Dan Lambert thing was a one-off, because if it was just a one-off, it at least got some a lot of buzz, a lot of media buzz, because of the names involved here. But but if it's not a one-off, he could do something more for AEW.
Yes. I mean, I'm not going to speculate more onto that, but yeah, I feel it's more of a one-off, because it was just to get something for the crowd to see as a variance. And like last year also, if you remember, we had Mike Tyson on AEW, and he was also flanked by a lot of prominent UFC stars like Vitor Belfort, Rashad Evans, and Henry Cejudo. So this fighter named Henry Cejudo, he was quite prominent, and then he announced his retirement all of a sudden before he appeared on AEW. And there were rumors that he was also going to be in pro wrestling, but unfortunately nothing came out of it. So regardless, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't see. I feel it was more of a one-off, and let's see, like, if they try to do something more of it, it would be entertaining regardless. And yeah, nothing more than that.
I'm putting Dan Lambert in that list with Bad Bunny of great outsiders to come into wrestling.
Yes, you could actually categorize that in a way, but like, if you've seen, like, I had mentioned in Impact, he was like Bobby Lashley's manager when he was the world champion, and then he lost it to Alberto El Patron. And like, he was cutting great promos even if, like, no one was watching it back then. But yeah, like, it was what it was.
But shall we get to the main event then?
Yes, let's do it to it.
So it was a street fight. So the AEW Tag Team Championship were on the line. Young Bucks were defending. the titles against Eddie Kingston and Penta L0M. So this came about after, yes, this came about after Kingston and Penta actually, won that eliminator match. From that, they got this title shot here, and considering all the situations, they decided to make it a street fight. So Young Bucks, they actually came out to legit street clothes, like wearing denim shorts and stuff, and they got rid of the mustache because they believed that the mustache thing was actually a curse on them. That's why they lost the match. So the match was really good. Like, this should have been the opener, but it was, you could say, a really solid match, at least for a main event standards.
Yes, and you could see, like, with the street fight and it being a championship match, you could see that it was bound to be a main event. But another interesting note for the mustache is they did mention it on Twitter. Like, they keep tweeting on their bio, which is kind of hilarious, where they mentioned that their wives got to them and they said that if they kept their mustaches, their wives would not make love to them. So that was like a hilarious way to get about that. But yeah, like you mentioned, the looks for the Bucks, like they were in literal street clothes, and it was a good throwback to like the grunge era in like the mid early to mid 90s, where jean shorts, like guys like Raven and Justin Credible used to wrestle with this attire. And I did see a tweet about that, given like the Young Bucks are quite widely hated for their over the top shtick. And someone wrote like these guys are just insufferable, because like in a way, in a reference to Justin Credible, because of the wordplay. So yeah, so this was a match, and this match was great, like from throughout. And it was like in street clothes, and they were doing all the hardcore stuff. It fit Eddie Kingston and Penta perfectly, as like they have a good history of being in hardcore matches. So the Bucks tried to up the ante by being in the hardcore getup themselves, and tried to get the better of both Penta and Eddie. And kudos to the Bucks for taking like such nasty bumps, on thumbtacks, and Matt going through a Canadian destroyer on the table. And from there, like, Eddie was beating the bejesus out of both Nick and Matt. And there were like a lot of interesting spots as well, where Kingston locks Matt into a sleeper hold, and then Nick Jackson goes for tries to interrupt that move, but he ends up performing the 450 splash on the referee Rick Knox, and then Matt taps out, which obviously means nothing, because like, and it wasn't under the sight of the referee. So that was a great way to get some heat on them, and then them doing more of their heel shtick. And then of course we had the inevitable run-ins from both Gallows, Anderson, and the elite hunter Frankie Kazarian, as Excalibur likes to
It comes
call
out of
him. That
nowhere.
who Kazarian, right?
Yeah.
That's yeah. It's fun in a way, because if you remember their match at Double or Nothing, where Young Bucks were like completely lost in their streamers and all the hype, and Michael Nakazawa was there in the crowd trying to be their Mark, the biggest fan. And then Frankie Kazarian takes them out at that time. And I am enjoying this heel Young Bucks shtick of being so over the top carny assholes. It works with them like so well. And yeah, I mean, it's one of the fun parts of the show for me. Like every time I look forward to how ridiculous the Young Bucks dress up every week. So coming back to this match, yeah, this match was great. Like it was a great main event, a great way to close the show, for the first match on the road. So yeah, a lot of plus points for me in this case. What about you?
Yeah, match was really fun. It was really great. So talking about the highlights, so Kingston and Penta actually got rid of one of their stooges. So this time it was Nakazawa. He was out of the picture. So another stooge, Brandon Cutler. So there was this big spot last week with the cold spray to the eyes of Matt Jackson. So he was actually hesitating this week. And this was going around while Matt and Penta were doing these transitions, and uh, Cutler is not ready to spray, get into the eyes of Matt Jackson again. So while this was going on, he was power bombed by someone. I don't know who was. I think it was Kazarian, right?
The elite hunter Frankie Kazarian.
Yeah, Cutler got power bombed on one of those tables. So early on, Matt Jackson went through a table via a Canadian destroyer, which looked great. So you talked about this spot where where Kingston had Matt Jackson in a chokehold. So Nick Jackson was on top. So he actually had two choices: either save his brother or take out the referee. So he decided to take the referee out with a 450 splash, while Matt Jackson finally tapped out, and that spot really didn't mean nothing, because like I'm talking about Matt Jackson tapping, which was actually a good spot in the psychological terms of things. So we also see weapons like chairs and thumbtacks being introduced. So Penta was the one who went through the thumbtacks via a Hurricanrana or is something like that. So this is where the finish came. So Kingston was taken out. So they Bucks pinned Penta here and got the win. Really good match and really good way to end this good road rager show.
Yes, and like it was like there was this hilarious moment on commentary. Like it was a very tiny part where these guys, where both Kingston and Penta super kick Nakazawa instead. Yeah, they super kick Nakazawa instead of the Young Bucks, and then Excalibur goes like they got like he gets Naka knocked out. So that was like a good line from Excalibur, and I feel that Excalibur was like my favorite commentator on this show because he got to his entire Smarky self, and he is the commentator for the Smarks. Like he represents them, and this episode, like barring the tiny Malakai Black moment, I believe he was on fire this episode.
He is the best on that three-man booth.
Yes, absolutely. And but like a part of me really enjoys Tony Schiavone, and Tony Schiavone is like my one of my all-time favorite commentators. But for Rampage, I hope Excalibur gets to commentate, and I also hope they sign Mauro Ranallo as well.
I think Moro is going to take that Excalibur spot, or you could say the JR
Yes,
spot.
yeah, and it also gives a bit of variance because on Dynamite, Excalibur is more of a play-by-play guy instead of color, because he calls like every action to the spot, and like from spot to spot he just gives you the entire story, and he's just calling the action on the get-go. But on sorry for calling it elevation, the Rampage, it asks him to be a color commentator, and then he would give his expert opinion while Moro calls the action. So there is, in a way, there is some difference on Dynamite and Rampage. So that would be an interesting yin and yang for Excalibur in terms of giving his input on the show.
Yeah, that's why that three-man booth works. Like Excalibur, does the technical stuff. JR is just JR, and Tony Schiavone is just happy to be there. Like he feels like a genuine guy on that commentary team.
Yes, Tony, like I had mentioned last week, Tony is the lapsed fan who just got back to wrestling and is now enjoying it again.
Really good stuff, man. That was Road Rager. And really looking forward to the next specials like Fighter Fest and Fight for the Fallen, I believe.
There's also AEW Homecoming on August 4th. So we did mention this last week, where they would do a show back in Jacksonville, given that it's their own building, and they would call it Homecoming. So they are getting that show now, and a lot sooner than we had expected.
Like they wanted to do something special, so there you go. They want to do Homecoming, and it also could be that they want to go a little easy in this touring schedule, like stay in the Florida market, go somewhere like New York or Texas when they get the chance or something like that. So they're slowly going to back to the road, you could say.
Yes, and the travel restrictions are still existing. Like, especially I can say for someone in Kuwait who is like the flights are opening only on August 1st, And given lately there has been a big spike in cases, so you could see that being delayed. So like despite things getting normal, you could say like, there are still hindrances, and obviously with that AEW would also like to take things slow at this point after touring Texas, touring Miami and then Texas and then coming back to Jacksonville. So you could see them coming back, like you could understand that part. And after the Jacksonville show, I think they're going to Pittsburgh. No, yeah,
It's
I think they're going to Pittsburgh as a start of Rampage.
yeah, I think so.
Yes.
But let's wrap things up, man. So before we leave, we can just find you.
So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at rid_aman. And if you're watching this in video form, you could see it right above my head.
You can find Slamhub Wrestling on Twitter at SlamHubW, Instagram at SlamHub Wrestling, and you can catch the audio versions of this review on Anchor and Spotify as well. So this was the AEW Dynamite review, and we'll see you guys next time.
Ciao.